My phone screen glowed in the dark, a silent mockery in the stillness of my apartment. It was a text from my mother, Maria. Need $25,000 wired by Friday. Clara's 30th in Bali. My hands trembled, not with sadness, but with a sudden, electric rage. Just 3 days ago, I had stood alone on a stage, my new PhD hood feeling impossibly heavy on my shoulders. I had scanned the crowd for them. For her, for my father, for my sister. The rows reserved for family were empty. Not one of them had bothered to show up. There was no call, no text, just silence. Those empty chairs were a quiet, passive statement. This text message was an aggressive, arrogant exclamation point. My entire life had been a version of this. I was Elena, the reliable one, the brilliant one, the one who worked 3 jobs through undergrad, the one who paid for their emergencies. I was their ATM, their steady rock, their scapegoat daughter. And my sister, Clara, was the son. She was the golden child who failed out of 2 different colleges, the one whose creative ventures always cost a fortune and produced nothing. I was the one paying for their mistakes while Clara got the praise, the trips, the endless, unconditional support. I stared at the blinking cursor. My fingers, which had just finished a doctoral dissertation on complex data modeling, typed a single, cold word. No. I hit send. The immediate explosion was deafening. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree, vibrating violently on the nightstand. A call from Maria. A call from my father, David. A call from Clara. One after another, a frantic barrage of demands. I didn't not answer. I just watched the screen flash, each incoming call a new wave of their entitlement crashing against my new boundary. I silenced them all. This was the end. The money, the excuses, the one-sided sacrifice. It was all over. I knew they wouldn't respect a text message. They had never respected me. They all had keys to my condo. For emergencies, my mother had insisted. Their emergencies, not mine. I picked up my phone and called a 24-hour locksmith. An hour later, a man with a heavy toolbox was installing a new, high-security deadbolt. The metallic click of the new lock sliding into place was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The next morning, the pounding on my door was so violent it rattled the pictures on my wall. I wasn't surprised. I looked through the peephole. It wasn't my family. It was 2 police officers. My heart didn't race. It turned to ice. I opened the door. "Ma'am, are you Elena Reed?" "Yes, officer. We received a call for a wellness check. Your mother, Maria Reed, reported that you were unstable, suicidal, and had been making threats against yourself and your family." I almost laughed. The audacity, the sheer, narcissistic brilliance of her move. Play the victim, paint me as the crazy one. "Officers, I'm a lead data scientist at Omnicorp. I just successfully defended my doctoral dissertation 4 days ago. I am not unstable. I am just done." I showed them my immaculate condo. I showed them my work ID. And then, I showed them the text message on my phone. The one demanding $25,000. The older officer's face hardened. He looked at his partner. "I see. I think we understand what's happening here, Dr. Reed. This looks like a family dispute, not a wellness check." "Exactly. My mother didn't get the money she demanded, so she called you." He nodded, handing me a card. "If they continue to harass you, call us. This is a waste of city resources." The moment the door closed on their apologies, the ice in my veins solidified. My fury, my sadness, all of it turned into cold, methodical clarity. She hadn't just crossed a line, she had declared war, and she had just shown me exactly how she planned to fight, by painting me as unhinged. It was a mistake. It was the last mistake she would ever make with me. It showed me they were panicked. When my family felt threatened, they didn't back down, they attacked. They had just tried to use the police to intimidate me, to control the narrative, to get what they wanted. My mother always said I was too smart for my own good. She had no idea. As a lead data scientist, my entire career was built on one principle: finding patterns in chaos. My job was to sift through millions of data points to find the one anomaly, the one hidden connection, that revealed the truth. I decided it was time to turn that focus on my own life. I sat at my desk, the one where I had written my dissertation, and opened my banking portal. Not the simple app on my phone, but the full, detailed interface on my desktop. I started where I always did, a full audit. I started with the credit inquiries. My score was excellent, something I had guarded fiercely. I scrolled down, and there it was. A new inquiry, dated 3 weeks ago, from American Express Platinum. I never applied for a platinum card. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I logged into my credit report. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just one. There was another. Chase Sapphire Reserve. 2 new high-limit cards, both opened 3 weeks ago. Both using my social security number. Both listing the mailing address as my parents' house. I called the banks. The automated system was useless. I used my data scientist voice, the one that projected calm, lethal competence, until I had a human from the fraud department on the line. Yes, Dr. Reed. We show this account was opened on October 10th. The current balance is $21,000. My breath hitched. And the Chase card. That one has a balance of $19,000. $40,000. The charges were easy to trace. Bali Resorts LLC. Lux Event Planning. First Class Air. They were already spending the money. The money they had just texted me to demand. This wasn't a last-minute request. This was a premeditated plan. They had tried to steal it. And when the cards were maxed, they came to me for the rest. I thought, for a moment, that this was the end of it. That this was the great betrayal. I was wrong. This was just the beginning. My family operated on a system of entitlement, but this was a new level. This was bold. This was criminal. And it made me wonder, if they were willing to do this now, what had they done in the past? I dug deeper. I pulled the property records for my own condo. The one I was sitting in. The one I had bought with my own salary, my own down payment. I had worked for years to have this one thing that was mine. My eyes scanned the public document. And then my heart stopped. It didn't just beat. It physically stopped in my chest. A home equity line of credit. A HELOC had been taken out against my property 6 months ago. No, it wasn't possible. I never did that. I clicked the link to view the scanned documents. And there it was, a loan for $150,000. And at the bottom of the page, a signature. A clumsy, obvious, pathetic forgery of my name. Elena Reed. I remembered it instantly. 6 months ago, my father, David, had come over for dinner. He had a stack of papers. Elena, Head said, smiling. Just some insurance papers for the house. We need your signature as a beneficiary. I remembered telling him I was busy. I told him to leave them, that I would review them with my lawyer. He had looked annoyed, gathered the papers, and left in a huff. He didn't leave them. He must have taken one of my documents from the desk. He must have forged it. I felt the bile rise in my throat. I ran to the bathroom and was sick. I gripped the cold porcelain of the sink, staring at my own reflection. The woman in the mirror was a pale, shaking stranger. I splashed cold water on my face. The shaking stopped. The pale stranger's eyes hardened. The tears dried. The fear vanished. All that was left was a terrifying, cold, and diamond-hard purpose. They hadn't just stolen money. They hadn't just forged my name. They had taken my one safe place in the world and turned it into collateral for their greed. I went back to my computer. I opened a spreadsheet. Line 1. Fraudulent credit card debt. $40,000. Line 2. Fraudulent home equity loan. $150,000. I looked at the transactions on the HELOC. Where did that money go? It was a single wire transfer. To Clara's Closet LLC. A business my sister had started 3 years ago that had never sold a single item. My parents had funneled $150,000 from my home into my sister's failed business. I checked my old bank statements. The mortgage payments for my parents' house. I had been paying half of it for 5 years. A temporary help that became a permanent expectation. The car payments for Clara's Range Rover. The tuition for her last failed attempt at a design degree. I hired a forensic accountant. I didn't need to. I already had the data. But I wanted an independent, certified, ironclad report. The final number was staggering. Over $300,000. My phone buzzed. It was Maria again. Elena, this is childish. We are your family. You will answer us. I picked up the phone. But I didn't call my mother. I called my lawyer. Not a family lawyer. Not some mediator who would talk about healing and understanding. I called Daniel Chen, the top criminal fraud attorney in the city. The man they called the surgeon because his legal work was precise, brutal, and left no survivors. Daniel Chen listened to my story on a conference call with me and the forensic accountant. He was silent for 10 full minutes as we laid out the data. The HELOC, the forgeries, the credit card fraud, the text messages, the police report from the wellness check. When we finished, there was a pause. "Dr. Reed," he said, his voice calm and appreciative. "You have done 90% of my job for me. This is the cleanest case of felony-level fraud, forgery, and identity theft I have seen in my career. Your family is, to put it politely, catastrophically stupid. What do you want? I want my money back. I want my name cleared. And I want them to stop." He laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Oh, we can do better than that. We can make them famous." My lawyer was a man who appreciated irony. He did a little research. He discovered that my sister Clara wasn't just planning a 30th birthday party in Bali. She was also celebrating her engagement. "They're having a large, very public engagement party this Saturday," Daniel said, his voice brimming with professional enthusiasm. "At the Grand Royale Hotel ballroom. It seems my father is planning to give a speech. About family." "That's perfect," Daniel said. "It's the perfect venue for a legal service." Saturday night arrived. I was not at the party. I was at home, sitting at my desk, a live video feed open on my laptop. Daniel Chen had hired a private investigator who was attending the party as a guest. I watched my family. They were radiant. My mother Maria in a glittering new gown, my father David holding a glass of champagne, looking proud, and Clara, basking in the spotlight, her fiancé, a man from a wealthy family, looking at her with adoration. He had no idea who he was marrying into. My father tapped the microphone. The room went quiet. He began his speech. "Family," he said, his voice booming. "It's the most important thing. It's the rock. It's the foundation of everything we build. It's about values, about loyalty." At that precise moment, Daniel Chen walked into the ballroom. He was not alone. He was flanked by two associates, both holding thick leather briefcases. They walked straight to the stage. My father faltered, his words dying in his throat. "David Reed." Daniel's voice was quiet, but it carried in the silent room. "You're being served." He handed my father the thick stack of papers. The civil lawsuit. Clara, who had been laughing a moment before, stormed toward them. "What is this? You are ruining my party." Her fiancé looked confused, his smile frozen. My father tried to pull Daniel aside, his face turning a dark shade of red. "This is a family matter. We can handle this privately." Daniel Chen smiled, a thin, cold smile. "It became a criminal one about $150,000 ago." He nodded to the ballroom doors. And in that moment, the doors opened again. Two uniformed police officers and a plainclothes detective from the Financial Crimes Unit walked in. The room went from silent to a gasp. The detective walked to the stage, his face impassive. Maria Reed, David Reed, Clara Reed. Clara's fiancé took a sudden step back, as if she was radioactive. "You are under arrest." My mother screamed a high-pitched theatrical wail. "What? For what?" The detective didn't blink. He began to read the charges, his voice cutting through her cries. Felony identity theft, grand larceny in the first degree, conspiracy to commit fraud, and forgery. My father lunged, not at the officers but at the P.I.S. camera. Too late. The officers had him in an instant. Clara's fiancé looked at her, his face pale with horror. "Clara, what did you do?" She just shook her head, muttering, "It's Elena. It's all Elena. She's unstable. She's a liar." The detective cuffed my father. "Sir, you have the right to remain silent." My father, finally realizing this was not a negotiation, shouted, "She's a liar. She's unstable. We have a police report." The detective looked at him. "We saw that report, sir. And we saw the text message you sent her after she filed it. The one demanding money." My father's face collapsed. My mother fainted, a dramatic, calculated fall that no one moved to catch. Clara was crying, mascara running down her face as they put her in handcuffs. Clara's fiancé didn't even look at her. He simply turned, picked up his coat, and walked out of the ballroom. The entire party, all of their friends, their colleagues, their society contacts, watched as my family was escorted out in handcuffs. The camera feed was beautiful. The civil case was a landslide. It was a summary judgment. They didn't even have a defense. Their house, the one I had been paying for, was seized to pay back the fraudulent HELOC. The car was repossessed. They were found guilty on all criminal counts. My father and mother received sentences of 5 to 7 years for forgery and grand larceny. Given their age, it was a life sentence. Clara, in a desperate attempt to save herself, pleaded guilty and testified against them. She got 3 years probation, a felony record, and a ruined name. Her fiancé never spoke to her again. I used the recovered funds, every single dollar, to launch my own data analytics firm. I called it Veritas Solutions. Truth. I moved out of the condo they had desecrated. I bought a penthouse overlooking the city. The last I heard, Clara was working as a cashier at a discount grocery store. My parents' assets were completely liquidated. I stood on the balcony of my new home, looking out at the city lights. My phone was silent. My mind was quiet. My life was, for the first time, entirely my own. I had been their foundation, and when I removed myself, their entire world collapsed. It was, as a data scientist would say, the only logical outcome. If you have ever had to be the strong one, the one who fixes everything, remember to check the data. You might find you are not supporting a family. You are funding a conspiracy. If my story taught you anything, I hope you'll share it, and be sure to subscribe and watch the next story.